What's going on, everybody? We had another live Facebook recap video that we did today. Before, as always, I'm going to jump on here and get a couple of the announcements out of the way. First off, with a Patreon update, the famous Raleigh Williams joins the podcast's Patreon. So thank you very much to Raleigh Williams. He is a legend. He's been on the podcast 2 times in the past. He is famous for the average pool player as well as all of the recreated best shots out there from live matches. He does a lot in the industry, and he is doing a lot outside of the industry now as well. And he has jumped on to be a Patreon. So thank you very much to you, Raleigh. And I am going to throw out there, I don't know if it's a challenge or whatever, but right now we are averaging about 6 podcasts a month, something like that, between 6 and 8. And I wouldn't mind upping that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a challenge. If we get to 75 Patreons to the podcast, so basically if we add about 25 Patreons to the podcast, then I am going to guarantee at that point in time that we take that up to a guaranteed 10 podcasts per month. So it would be more content, it would be more player interviews, because we're still only going to do the one podcast per week as far as the recap. So this is going to be like your favorite players, promoters, stuff like that. We'll add a couple of those, while all the way up to a guaranteed 10 podcasts per month if we get up to 75 Patreons. So if you have been waiting in the past to become a Patreon and you just haven't had enough of a spark to get over to Patreon and sign up, this might be your, catalyst. If you want more content of the podcast, head over to Patreon. It is Patreon, so patreon.com/Queue It Up. That's Patreon/Queue It Up. You can also check the description of this video wherever you're watching it from, and it will have the link on there. So again, one last time, if we get 75 Patreons to the podcast, we are going to do 3 to 4 bonus shows per month on addition to what we already do. Lots more content. Plus, you get to support the podcast, which is awesome. So we really thank you guys for that. So let's move on from that. And I will say that I'm going to be jumping on a plane to go to Vegas for BCA in about 10 days. I'm going to be in Vegas. So if you're going to be out there for BCA, or you're going to be out there for the Diamond Las Vegas Open or the World 10 Ball or anything like that, and you want to meet up and grab a couple drinks and just hang out, please look me up. Or if you want some apparel, I'm going to be taking out some apparel. And if you want a t-shirt or a hoodie or a towel, please get with me and let me know, and I will make sure to bring you one out to Vegas with me. All right, other than that, that's pretty much all I got to clear up in the beginning. So without further ado, here is the live Facebook show we did today.
I'm a real deal. I'll shoot your liver out and hand it to you.
Or how you're just as good as Chip Compton now. Right when we go live, he walks away.
Yeah. I had my backpack with my computer, my lights, and all that in the car, and I just dogged it completely. So brutal.
I'm disappointed. So the guy who literally walks as much as he possibly can on the stream table so everybody can see him. Right when we go live, he walks away. That same guy?
He may or may not like attention. I'm not judging, but he may or may not like it. So I'm here at the Texas Open.
That's awesome.
It looks like chips on the ropes down the sky. Omar's giving Dennis all he can handle. Well, there's a lot of good men. I'm pumped to be here. Are we live right now?
Yeah, we're live right now.
Well, Tracy just said, hey.
Tracy's always our number 1 fan.
Oh, wow.
She's awesome. So show us the room, Mike. What does it look like? You're on your phone, right?
See if I can. Yeah, but I wonder if I can turn this around. Oh, well, no, just hold on. There you go. All right, so this is the. I don't know. Can y'all see here? So I'm in literally. is the left side room. You got Naoki Oi playing Jeremy Jones over there. I don't know if y'all can see. John Morris playing Roland Garcia, which John had a battle with Warren yesterday. Pretty brutal. Back-to-back Filipinos. Sky and Chipper playing Mika and Chris Reinhold. Let me see if I can keep on going here.
Oh, yeah.
Give y'all the grand tour.
I feel like you're like the queued up I team right now.
Dennis, someone's up 2-1. Omar's at the table, and it looks like he's shooting. So let me see if I Tony and in the corner. It's Scott Frost and Warren Kianco, Jeremy Seaman.
That's a brutal field, man.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, man. Tommy's playing.
What's the total field there, Mike? How many? What do you got for numbers there?
32 players, $1,000 entry, roughly about 50,000 in the Calcutta. So it's pretty nice, man. It's quality wise, probably the best Texas Open that I've ever been to. Quality, like just as far as a deep field, you know. So that's pretty nice, man. I'm really enjoying. I mean, players from all over the world, because guys are already starting to get in town for the gauntlet of events coming up. You know, Vegas is right around the corner.
And all the while, Demetrius is over here, just his mouth is just watering. Like, why am I not there? Why am I not there?
Hey, you know, I gotta train for. I'm not good enough to play full time. I gotta train. Yeah. So got someone flying in tonight. We're gonna be training the next 3 days, so I'll have my fun. But I'll be, like I said, anybody that's interested in watching me, I'll be at the U.S. Open next month, and then I am going to be playing the Predator 10 ball in October. So I've got a couple tournaments to play. I'll be there with Josh Burble. We'll both be playing.
Nice, man.
And then I'll see you guys out there. So, but anyway, for now, Texas Open. Josh is down at the Texas Open too. He didn't play the 1 pocket, but he'll be playing the 9 ball. So, good times, man. Are you having a bunch of fun? You sweating some matches out there, Mike? Who's your pick to win it, Mike?
I don't think he can hear us. I think his internet's in there a little rough. Well,
I think you're right. He's freezing up here too.
Yeah. So,
the only thing that kind of just frustrates me from a fan's perspective. Yeah, for sure. I mean, usually I go and I get in Calcutta. So I enjoy to gamble.
well, that's a pretty rough internet connection. We'll get you back in here in just a second, Mike. So, Mark DeLille says Shane didn't kill his bar table action. Justin Bergman said he'd play anyone in the world, the bar table at Players Club. I don't I mean, maybe he did. I don't know. What do you think about that, Demetrius?
Okay, so when people make a conditioned offer like that, it's obvious. Like anybody that watched what happened with Shane or even just looked at the results of what happened with Shane and Dennis, it's clear that Shane is, unbeatable on a bar table. So anybody that says they can beat him on their home table, they have to know something we don't know, which is like maybe Justin can break and run out on his home table at an 80% clip because he has the breakdown to where with his template on that table, he gets the same layout and he beats, he played 50 racks against the 9-ball Ghost without ball in hand and won 42 of them. He broke and ran 42 out of 50. And now he's like, it doesn't matter who I play because I've got it solved on my table. Like, to me, that's what that's saying. It's saying that I've got the game solved on my table to where it doesn't matter who I'm playing. That's the only way somebody bets against Shane. And then if you're going to bet on Shane in a match like that, or if Shane were to go play a match like that, it's like, come on. It's, if it's conditioned in that way, without even seeing, it's like a prop bet. It's like somebody at the bar saying, I'll bet that I could jump over these two tables. It's like, if the guy's willing to bet on it, you know that he knows something you don't. So even if it sounds ludicrous, who's going to take that bet?
All I'm saying is if Justin Bergman can figure out something about the break that Shane can't figure out, okay, if that's the case, then I'm just going to stop covering pool because I literally know nothing about this game. If Justin Bergman can figure out something about the break that Shane can't, I don't care if he's had a 10-year head start to figure it out on that table. To think that Shane can't figure it out, at least up until that match, or 10 games in, watching Justin Bergman break from there.
Yeah, I think you're right, Demi, on that perception that you had there. I was in Southern California for a year when I was younger, and there was a pool hall out in San Diego on one of the beaches out there, and a fellow would come in twice a year, and he would do the same shot, and he would wager whatever he could get in the pool room on that shot. He'd put a coin on the end rail, and then he'd put a hat on the floor, and then he'd put a coin on the ball, top of the ball on the spot, and he'd put a glass of water on the next table over.
And he'd have to knock the coin into the cup of water and knock something into the hat.
Yes. And he never missed it. He'd do it. He would do it twice when he came in because people would gather around, and then more people would want to bet that he couldn't do it again. He'd get action. He'd get at least $100 action the first time he did it, but the second time it'd be $300 or $400 because more people would be around, and they would all bet against him. And he would do it again, and I watched him make the shot, and then he'd leave. He wouldn't talk to anybody. He would just pack up his bags and walk out the door with their money.
So these prop bets, this is what I'm talking about, Rob. So with these prop bets, so when I see guys like, whether it's Fedor or whether it's guys like, Filler, or even when like Shane and Shaw played on the big table, like when there's kind of like, I'd almost break it down to like there's two kinds of matchups. You have matchups where players get onto a table and the same table that everybody else competes on, and they play the same game with the same rules that everyone else plays. So when Shane played Shaw a year and a half ago playing big table 10 ball, they played big table 10 ball, template, 9-foot diamond, everything kind of normal, and they just played a race to 100. When things start getting like, I'll play, but instead of playing the normal game with the normal rules that everybody else plays, I'll play on this table over here with this cue ball, with the brack this way, or, we're going to play with these, like anytime they start, and it's weird, you think, well, how could a table make them, or, and even bar table pool at this level, man, it kind of turns it into a prop bet at this level. It's really hard to know what's going on. I mean, I've been way off on my last call with, Shane and Sky. It's so much of the game comes down to like, who's got the inside information as to how this break is going to be cracked. And I like the matchups where people play the same game that we compete at, which is, like big table 9 ball, big table 10 ball, standard racks, let them get in the ring and duke it out. So when people start coming out of I admire Justin's courage to challenge anybody, but when people start making conditions where you know that if he played Shane big table 9 ball, or even a bar table 9 ball with normal rules, you figure, if Shane could beat Dennis 100 to 93, he could beat Justin 150 to 93. He could beat Justin 150 to 80. And so it's like for Justin to say, I won't play that game, but I'll play it over here. It's just like, I love Justin, but come on, man. It's like, it's just weird. I just like normal.
Justin can say he'll play anybody. And Justin won't travel away from basically St. Louis at this point. Or not St. Louis. He's playing out of Illinois. Racks on the Rocks now. He won't play. Well, here you go. We got Mike back now, so we can. Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't listening. Do you hear us, Mike?
Sarah wants you and Tyler Steyer to play, Nate.
Yeah, that's bad action. That's tough action for me. That's tough action
boys.
for me.
I am
tough, a little tough.
All right,
just
So, Mike, I'm going to ask you a question since you weren't here, and you're just going to answer with as few words as possible.
Okay.
Shane and Justin play at Justin's house, race to 150 bar table. What's the score?
What's the game?
The same game Dennis and Shane just played. Dennis and Shane. Bar table 9-ball.
I think he says 8-ball, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's Mark's comment.
Oh, no, he does say 8-ball. Bar table 8-ball.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, I can't see Justin outbreaking Dennis, so I'm going to have to go with around the same scores where it's at right now with Shane and Dennis, roughly.
I can't imagine it's close.
Bar table 8-ball?
That's what he says here.
No, 9-ball. I thought it was 9-ball.
Well, no, bar table. Yeah, Mark said bar table 8-ball.
Well, then bar table 8-ball, the break gets even bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's no little dink break that you can use like you can with a Magic Rack 9-ball. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Then there's something I don't. And I don't even know if Justin said that. To be fair, we're going off a comment, which I believe you guys in the chat, but it's third hand for me. But I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody can.
I don't think Justin wants any of that. Oh, just that Mark said that Shane didn't kill his bar table action. Justin said he'll play anyone in the world bar table 8-ball at Players Club.
Yeah, but the caveat is in St. Louis, right? Because Justin doesn't ever want to travel.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't care if it's being played in Sardinia. Or
I mean, I'd want to watch it for sure, but.
Oh, I'd love to watch it. I'd watch it if they played on the moon. It doesn't change the fact that I don't think Justin's going to be able to get there.
No, I don't. Well, I mean, bar table 8-ball, it's a much more of a crapshoot because there's no control in it, and Shane likes to go and control everything. Even like whenever he was breaking that 9-ball, everything was kind of moving real fast. But I mean, there was a lot of consistency in that break, But bar table 8-ball is a whole other animal. Bergman's cue ball is pretty gross. His pattern play is just, I mean, top tier. But listen, I mean, when you're busting up people just coming through and St. Louis amateur players, I mean, how sharp are you really? Because, I mean, what scale are we gauging Justin on? I mean, I'm sorry. If you don't travel, it's kind of, I don't know how we can go and have him in that top tier kind of category if you're just staying at home all the time. Maybe a great player, but you got to play against top talent.
I agree.
I
still don't think I don't care what the rules are. I don't care where the pool room that's being played at. I don't think anybody even gets close to getting there with Shane. I mean, you took.
But I love bar table 8-ball though.
Oh yeah, bar table 8-ball's it's a great game. 8-ball anything is great. I don't care if it's big table or bar table. I just like watching 8-ball. It's just such a complex game, and it's fast paced while being complex. I like it. So the only thing is, like, Shane just took the number 1 and number 2 players in the world as far as outside of him that have a credible claim at being a bar table player, top bar table player. And if you want to throw Justin in that category, fine, you can throw him in there with Sky and Dennis, but he's certainly not significantly better than Sky or Dennis. And Shane just beat them both by 100 games combined. Right? He beat Sky by almost 40 games. He beat Dennis by almost 60 games. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I was saying it jokingly online about Shane killing his bar table action. And who knows? I mean, maybe Justin will step up to the plate, but I can't think of anyone else. You can't put – Fedor doesn't want any part of playing on the kiddie table. Filler couldn't even get their bar table 8-ball against Corey. So he ain't going to get there against Shane.
I did see a comment that the Spanish players play a bit of 8-ball. Well, Mr. Nieves was here in Wisconsin at the Jacoby Open a few years ago. And he played 8-ball. And actually, I played him some 3-cushion on an 8-bar on a bar box. And
who'd you say, Rob? I didn't hear what you said.
Nieves, his last name is Nieves.
This is just the beauty of like Shane and his timing, though. Like, Shane looks like he's got the biggest break in the world, but being built wise, he's not a huge guy. I mean, everyone who's ever seen him before.
100 breaks, he doesn't go dry.
His timing is just deal. So pure.
That's gross.
The best. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So I guess let's jump into Dennis and Shane. We got a good talk about the bar tables. Final score 150-93. I got the stats up right here. I guess before we even jump into this, let me just give a huge shout out to Digital Pool. At this point in time, like as far as the legacy of the game and actually like growing the game into the future, who is doing more for pool right now than Digital Pool? Like anybody. I mean, the stats that they're putting together for these matches, this stuff is just taken for granted in football and basketball and baseball. And I mean, some of the stats you pull out in baseball, if you listen to these games, are just stupid. Like, oh, the pitcher hasn't
Baseball is
thrown.
all about numbers.
Yeah,
all about numbers.
I heard a stat like it's like a batter hasn't gone for the cycle with an extra home run since 1964. How the hell do you even come up with that stuff, right? Like this is the weirdest things ever. Like the stats that they come up with are crazy. And Digital Pool is like basically introducing this. It's basically introducing pool and billiards to like the 21st century. If you can't have stats, you can't. It's really hard to come up with narratives if you don't have stats. And what they're doing right now, it's amazing. I mean, you can look at that match, and if you don't have any stats on it, you just say, all right, well, yeah, Shane definitely outbroke him. But what you can't tell is he outbroke him 293 balls on the break to 154. Now, granted, he got a lot more breaks, so that's going to be something. But
what people don't realize is that that'll help the gambling, like the legitimate gambling lines a lot by having numbers like that. And if you can go and get regular people to go and gamble on pool, like they go and gamble on basketball, go and gamble on soccer, go and gamble on tennis, it's a game changer for pool. And I can tell you that alongside Digital Pool, there's a team of guys that are getting together to help with how Fargo rate goes and as far as the differences in games. So like how it'll go and affect from big table to bar table, from one pocket to, let's say, a rotation. So there's things in the works behind the scenes that all these numbers are just going to go and help be parallel with each other. And it's phenomenal. Isaac Wooten, I think, is the guy, and there's another gentleman that's along with them, but they're out of the Dallas area. Great guys, doing a lot for pool. And yeah, it's huge, man. Having numbers like that can really help with the handicapping side of things.
Absolutely.
Which will just help in the long run.
I think the biggest thing that you can see from the stats that I see, first off, is they both scratched 7 times on the break. Dennis broke, we'll say 93 times because he won 93 games. I don't remember who won the leg. We'll just say that somebody broke 93 times, and Shane broke 150 times. So Dennis had basically 60% of the breaks that Shane did and scratched the same amount of times. I mean, I think that's a pretty good, and if you really think about it, 7 out of 150 is kind of gross with how they were doing it. 'Cause, I mean, they're kind of just throwing the cue ball. They're cutting the break, kind of throwing the cue ball back through the stack. It's not hard to go 2 times across and scratch into the left middle pocket, or just get kicked into the right middle pocket, or kick straight up table. It's kind of crazy to think he only scratched 7 times. I mean, Dennis 7 out of 93. That makes a little bit more sense to me. But I guess the final score 150-93. Demetrius, anything you take away that you think was, a surprise?
I mean, I think it's just a surprise how decisive it was that, Shane won each day by that much of a margin. And it was one of those things where it was just kind of one-sided, where you're watching it and it was almost like halfway into the first day, or not, even earlier. It was just kind of like you start watching it and they've got this 3-day event and you're like 2 hours in and you're like, oh, okay, he got him. All right, he's in a trap. And it's just like now it's just watching it play out for 3 days. And it's kind of so from a suspense standpoint, I mean, it wasn't the most suspenseful match ever, but I'll tell you, even then, you have to just step back and watch and appreciate watching. I don't mean an exhibition like it wasn't a real money match, but at that point, you're just sitting back and watching maybe the greatest, bar table player that's ever lived put on a complete exhibition of what high-level bar table nibal can look like, and you just have to sit back and applaud. Pay the man his money. He beat me.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Rob?
Well, I think a couple of weeks ago I mentioned that having these caliber of players playing on a bar table, I personally not a real big fan of, and it isn't real exciting to watch. And these stats tell that. I mean, the match says that. They especially Shane. And there's other players too who just they eat the bar table up. It doesn't matter what game they're playing. It could be 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball, whatever it is, except one pocket. I think that's maybe a little goofy on the bar table, but yeah, it just goes to point that these guys on the bar table, it's like plucking chickens for them. They just it's easy for them.
Well, and I think I would add one last comment to what I said is I think the big question mark I had coming in was what percentage of the time was Shane going to be able to come up with a shot at the one? Playing 10-ball where he could break them square and kind of control the 1-ball, I kind of know how that break looks like. But if playing the 9-ball cut break and all that, like if he was ever coming up dry or if he was having any trouble controlling the 1 or the cue ball, if it was just one of those things where he was getting hooked and having to push or jump or move, and if he was inconsistent with coming up with shots, then I thought that, that was Dennis's only chance of having it be a fight. And I guess I was blown away by, even though he wasn't able to control everything all the time, he just, it's 9 balls. So if he can make a ball or two, have 7 or 8 balls left and have everything open and the cue ball somewhere near the middle, he was just, and then he can jump well and he can make hard shots even if they are laying awkward. He doesn't need to have the one hanging in the corner for him to be able to come with a shot. So I was really impressed by how effective he was. He almost never broke dry, and then he managed to come up. Yeah,
first time draft he didn't.
So good.
And then he came up with shots an awful lot of the time and put them all down. So I was really, I guess that's what I think I was really looking for was what percentage of the time was he going to come up, make a ball and get a shot at the one and make it. And he blew me away with how often he was able to do that, given the type of break.
He broke dry 0.5% of the time.
I'm sure that break haunts him, Nate. I'm sure that one's going to stick with him for a while.
Yeah, he sent me a message saying that he hasn't slept since.
Yeah.
He just feels like he really failed.
He wants to try again.
Yeah, he's ready to run it back. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Oh, one thing about it is that Shane was under pressure because he just lost 2 times to the guy, So how that goes and affects him mentally, and for him to go and step up, and Shane ain't always the easiest when it comes to making games. So that was good on his part. But the main thing is that we didn't see Shane go and close a lot in his previous matches, close well. Shane closed. Shane went wire to wire. He jumped out the gate on his throat and never let up. That was the most impressive thing. 27-7
in the first 34 games,
and
never looked back.
And that was the reason why. I had to go and bet on Shane because he's just such a competitor and hates to fucking lose. Hates to lose and hates to lose to Dennis. But with that kind of passion though, he hates to lose. And he hates the fact that Dennis has gotten the best of him the last 2 times. Dennis has gotten in his pocket the last few times. So I think that's the reason why we just saw this new level of brutality out there on the table. He beat him daily scores for 3 days straight. And then the collective was just...
And it wasn't close. It wasn't within 10 any days.
No. I know because I got 10 one day. I got 10 day 2 and I still didn't cover. So it's just it's unreal. He's just we can't take for granted his greatness. I don't want to be a victim of the moment. And bar table you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. But when Shane's motivated, he's capable of this high gear.
You know what though, Mike? I kind of feel like the fact that it's a bar table. I'm more with Rob, where I'm just kind of for the best players in the world to play on a bar table, it's fine. I'm not saying they shouldn't or they can't or that it's not interesting in its own way. But to me, look at it this way: suppose Shane had beaten Dennis twice playing 9-ball, and on the big table. Suppose Shane had won both those sets, and then Dennis said, "Well, I'll play you some 1 pocket," and then Dennis ran him over playing 1 pocket. You wouldn't be like, "Well, Dennis proved he's the better player." You'd be like, well, he had to play his own game and kind of switch to a game that Shane doesn't play as well, a kind of a gaff game. I love 1 pocket, but it's just not big table rotation. So in a way, I feel like Shane playing him on a bar table, it's impressive how well he can play on a bar table, but it's kind of like, the fact that he doesn't rematch him again on a big table a 3rd time, to me, it's almost waving the flag,
I think he would. Honestly, I think he would.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to go and sell from a promoter standpoint, and hard as a fan to go and try to watch for a third time, people are already barking to have new blood in the mix. So those are factors that have to be taken into consideration. But like if it was just them two, and said, "Hey, go meet me in South Dakota in the basement," like I'm sure Shane would go and throw a lot of money at playing them again, for big money that same way. Dennis wants no part of him playing 10 ball, none. And I remember after they played 10 ball a couple of years ago, Dennis offered him a ball playing one pocket. And Shane wasn't having it. So, but I mean, you can still appreciate each
Dennis
of their
might offer him
greatness, like
5
in
balls
their
and still Shane might not take it because he doesn't care about one pocket.
No, yeah, he hates it. He hates it.
The only way I feel like the only way I feel like he would be playing one pocket is if he literally was showing up for a paycheck and you can't win.
But like you can still appreciate Dennis's greatness like in one pocket, just like you can appreciate Shane's greatness in 10 ball and Shane's greatness on the bar table. Like if Corey were to go and be in a bar table A ball, would that take away from Shane's greatness or Shane's legacy or anything like that? No, it wouldn't. It means he won a set, and that would just solidify like Corey great in that game. And games do matter. Go look at John Brumback when it comes to banking the balls. Look how great Billy is at banking the balls. Like they're great in those avenues. Just because rotation may be more vogue or one pocket may be more vogue, it doesn't take away from that. And that's what I can always appreciate that from an all around standpoint. Like Justin Hall is not the best rotation player, even though he's got a great Mosconi record. But man, can he bank the ball? So I don't think one takes away from the other. I want to celebrate these guys, and what they're able to go and do on the table.
Yeah, I agree.
Great, but that was part of the listen. But that was part of the reason why it was kind of brutal to watch Dennis just get smoked like that. Like just get.
Well, that's actually what I want to talk about. That's my highlight actually of this was the only time I've ever seen in my life. This is the first time that I remember watching Dennis give up. And if you watch him on day 3, you can tell he's not even giving any. Like he shoots fast anyways, but he literally is stroking the ball on his final time before his head is even down on the shot. He is literally sprinting around the pool table, just trying to get it over with. And like he knew he was going to lose. He had to have known he was going to lose. This is the only time I've ever seen that Filipino fight in him give up.
I mean, when you're in a bad game, I mean, his backers would. I mean, the one thing about Dennis, and we've talked about this before, is just how he doesn't go and quit. But like, listen, when you're in a bad game and you ain't getting out of it, like I think everybody on Dennis's side knew that. Everybody who was there knew that. And what can you do? I mean, like it became a breaking contest, and you're not going to beat Shane.
Dennis is not a favorite there.
No, not at all. But yeah, it was pretty. I mean, but there's a number. Like I said, there's a number of other games that Dennis would go and play him at, without a doubt. But Shane wants to do what Shane wants to do, and God bless him. He's in a position where he doesn't need to go chase anybody. So while I wish because I would love, me personally, I would love to go and see Shane go and play a big one pocket set with one of these big guys. I don't think I'll ever go and be able to see it. But it's because I do think he does a lot of things well, and I think if he's focused and if he's hungry, like he's dangerous, man. He's one of those guys. Like he is dangerous in any game. I don't care what it is. So I'm just glad Pool's back, and Mike and them they did a phenomenal job, all things considered. That guy Michael Newsom, who owns the venue, they're doing so much, man. They did that event. They're putting up the money for Tony and Alex. Not the 150, but like, they're hosting that event. Then they're hosting the Diamond event. And then I want to say there was one other one, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, that guy's doing so much for pool out there on the East Coast. That's phenomenal. It's the beginning of what's going to be a great, 6 weeks of pool. And I'm just, I'm excited, man.
The next 6 weeks of pool are, so this unfortunately is, if you look at the schedule last year when COVID started and this year, now that we're back, this is like the stretch of pool we were going into last year. We had the World 10 Ball and the Diamond Las Vegas Open. The Diamond Las Vegas Open miraculously somehow finished with a couple of pullouts, notably Niels Fine pulled out of that event. And
of what, the diamond event you did?
Yeah, last year for COVID. No, last year during COVID, right? But like that is the stretch of time that we're coming into. So last year when COVID hit, they got through the Diamond Las Vegas Open, which is next week, and then they were about to start the Predator 10 ball, and that got canceled. And then right after that would have been the U.S. Open. So I mean, obviously that was in March last year. Now it's in August and September, but we're entering into what I think is the best stretch of pool of the year. It's got 3 massive events right back to back. Plus, we're sprinkling in Shane and Dennis. We're sprinkling in Tony and Alex. Shane and Chang are going to be kind of in that stretch towards the end of it. There's some really awesome matches that are coming up, some awesome tournaments, and I can't even overlook the Texas Open. The Texas Open is going on right now. There's a lot of really amazing events happening in pool over the next few weeks. It's like the glory time of the year for the events. And you can tell because Demetrius is traveling.
Yeah. Where are you at, Nate? Is that
his road buddy? Demi and his road buddy, Josh.
Yeah. What'd you say, Mike?
Where are you at? Is that a new office?
No, it's my same office. I just changed it. So now instead of
the angle.
Yeah, I changed how my Tim Clark reached out to me and screamed at me because I'm so unprofessional for pointing my camera at a closet. So I figured I'd change it up and make him happy.
You got Kelly's picture back there, I see.
Yeah, I threw up Kelly's picture. No, it was a
personal little note to Nate.
It was a good suggestion, and it's So
the beauty of it, there's a lot of money added to every single event. So that's also something that I can go.
I do have some news about another tournament.
Yeah, Rob wants to talk about 3 cushion. Come on, Rob.
Well, I do want to bring it up. Because it's a pretty big event. It's the first event held at the Madison 3-Cushion Billiard Parlor. Bob Keller Classic Open, it's called. And there's $26,750 in the prize fund for 28 players. And those players are going to share in that money out of the 28. So that's almost half the field is going to get a piece of that. And I just wanted to mention some of the players that are going to be in this field in Madison, Wisconsin. Luisa Vega from Ecuador, Xavier Turan, Ricardo Carranco, Pedro Buena, Mazen Shuni, Frank Torres, Jose De La Torre, Hugo Patino, John Park from Texas. I don't know if you know him, Mike. Vicky Pineda from California. Paul Guernsey, who is an established pocket pool player from Texas, also plays 3-Cushion. He's going to be there. And Brian Half from Illinois. That's a few of the more well-known players that are going to be in this event. And so it is going to be streamed. They have 5 billiard tables there. And there is, I don't have the streaming numbers or anything or how you can get it quite yet. That isn't worked out. But all 5 tables are going to be streamed for this event. And I'm going to be playing it. I'm going to donate.
Give him hell, buddy.
It was $1,000 entry, but there are some bennies for that $1,000. If you finish, if you play all your matches, in other words, you get $300 stipend for your room. You get a $400 basically or a little bit more membership in the club in Madison. And then there's Bob Keller himself, the owner of the club, and the promoter is adding $20,000 for the prize. So it's a big deal.
Does he want to buy a podcast?
What's that?
Does he want to buy a podcast? It sounds like he has money.
Oh, you'd have to ask Bob that.
What are the dates for that, Rob?
The dates are the 14th. Unfortunately, it's when the Open is out in Atlantic City. So, but the 14th through the 18th.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a pretty awesome event. I guess other big news, Mike. Why don't you promote your new page you just created and what you're going to do with it?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to be more professional like you boys, you know. So it's called Windows Open. It's just a way of just driving everything to somewhere other than my personal page, which has kind of just been organic over the last few years. I'm excited for it, but it's also it's something else to go and keep up with. But I'm up for the challenge. And yeah, it's just another avenue to go and bring pool and information to everyone. Just a bit of a heads up. Dennis is down 3-2 to Omar on the winner side. Roland and John are in a battle. Let me see if I can get an update on Tony and Alex for everybody.
Yep. And for everybody out there, I just put a link to it in the chat, so you can go over there and follow them if you want.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's great, man. I'm excited. So I'm trying to be like Neight. Yeah, but it's true. So
Who?
I'm trying to grow up and be like Neight.
Never heard of him.
Yeah.
Sounds like a nobody. Yeah. Well, all right. So we can move on from that. We can start talking about other things happening in the world, of course. So we have right here. We can see the cutie Dominic Dunn there. We can.
iPhone charger?
So we'll. I guess let's move on to the rest of our stuff. Let's talk about the stuff coming up. So we have, of course, the Texas Open is going on right now. That's being streamed by Pool Action TV. That's right. Pool Action TV is doing that event. Yeah,
with Ray.
Pool Action TV. Next week starts the Diamond Las Vegas Open, as well as the Predator 10 Ball and the BCA national event. I'm going to be out there playing in the BCA national event. I know that Mike is going to be out there, not playing, but he's going to be out there hanging out at the booth for Hanshu. Is that where you're going to end up hanging out? Or are you hanging out?
I'm going to be all over the place. So we're going to be with Hanshu. We're going to be with Jamie Ingraham and On the Rail Apparel. And then we're going to be with, and then with the Booth Brothers, we'll have a booth also out there. So I'm going to be bouncing all over the place. I'm excited, man. It's going to be a great event. Oz's going to do a great job. Our world champion is going to be crowned in the next, 2-3 weeks. So that's huge news. And the Diamond event, there's no slouch there. So world players from all over the world are going to be here. So.
Yeah, so if anybody out there is going to be out in Vegas next week, make sure, well, I guess in 2 weeks, starting next week, look me up, look Mike up, hang out, go check out his booth, and buy Mike, well, at least me, lots of drinks, because I don't think Mike drinks much. So you can buy me all of Mike's drinks plus my drinks. It'd be awesome, because last time I was in Vegas. I'll take the drinks,
and then I'll give them to Neight.
Yeah. You're always looking out for me. I appreciate that.
My man.
So that's what we have to look up forward to, and then, of course, after that, we're going to have the U.S. Open. I got to find out if we're going to do a show from out there. That's going to be tough. How are we going to do a show from out there? Demetrius, you ready to learn how to do some technology?
Well, just wait till the third round so I have time.
I see what you did there, because you'll be out.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So
now we need to teach Rob how to do technology so that we can still do a show for next week. I'm going to have to figure out how to get that done. Whatever.
You're not going to have a computer?
Hey, I am. I'm trainable, buddy.
I have to.
I'm not too old.
I'll have all my stuff with me, Nate, so we'll figure it out, buddy.
Yeah, we'll be okay. We'll be able to figure it out. So make sure to look us up. I guess other than that, what else do we have to talk about? There's not a whole lot coming up besides that as far as action matches.
I'm thinking about doing a boot camp.
You're thinking about doing a boot camp, huh?
I don't teach billiards, Rob.
No, pocket pool, buddy.
Well, yeah, you know where to find me. 3 days. Let's do it.
That could be a lot of fun. Well, I guess that's really all we have for this week. It was a little bit shorter of a week. I mean, we could have spent a little bit more time talking about Shane and Dennis, but Shane and Dennis was kind of there wasn't a whole lot to talk about as far as that. Go on, Demetrius.
I was just going to say, Alex had asked about a coach's corner. I had one thing I could hit that's kind of short. So if I wouldn't want to keep Mike if he wants to enjoy the atmosphere at the old Texas Open. But if we're done with the show, if you want to give me 5-6 minutes, I could jam on something.
Go on.
Okay.
I got like 10%, boys, so I'm going to head out. But
all right, Mike.
I'll try to pop in live whenever I can, man.
Yeah, go talk to Tina.
Take care, buddy. Have fun.
Later, boys.
All right, cool. So I just wanted to kind of do this for Alex, and something that's kind of been on my mind is has to do with kind of maintaining focus. And there's something funny. So I think what is important with focus. I mean, there's a few times when focus is threatened, where it's very common for people to lose focus. And so there was a specific situation, so how do you keep your focus? We all know that you got to stay focused. But I think part of it is knowing when it's common to lose your focus. So I've come up with a couple spots in 10 ball or 9 ball, for example, where it's real easy to lose your focus. And one of them is right when you solve the rack. So like if you have a really tough 3, 4, 5 layout, and maybe you come with a hard 1 ball, you get on the 3 ball, you get through the 3 to the 4 to the 5, and then you get to where once you make the 5, that's the last hard shot, you landed good on the 6, everything's open, you're like, I did it. Yeah. And then what happens is it's really, really easy right there to just breathe a deep sigh of relief and immediately play yourself out of line. You just immediately feel like it's all smooth sailing from here. Maybe you miss the 6, or maybe you make the 6 and fall really awkward on the 7, and all of a sudden something that should have been routine, all of a sudden it's like, well, this isn't routine anymore. Yeah. And this happens in 8 ball too when you solve the rack in 8 ball. Nate, how many times isn't it amazing in bar table 8 ball how like you can run through the tough part of the rack, have like 3 balls left, like 2 balls in the 8 ball, where it looks like it should just be tap, tap. But as soon as you breathe that sigh of relief, you fall on that, where all of a sudden you got a little bit more angle, and now you got to go to the head rail. It's a little hard to control the speed, and all of a sudden it gets a little funny, And so
I don't know if I've ever solved a rack before, Demetrius. I'm
sorry. Oh man,
I saw it last week, Demetrius, on a bar table with a 700 player. He at $400 a ball. He gets down to the 8 ball in 10 ball on a bar table, and he blows shape on the 9.
Yeah,
it's all kinds of great shots before that.
So, and of course, some of it could be pressure, right? Pressure leads to whatever. You start thinking like, oh, how could something go wrong from here? And then you start summoning ways for things to go wrong. But just in terms of lack of focus, so one time it comes up is right after you solve a rack. Now, there's another time I thought about where it comes up. And I saw a money match on Sunday night between a couple of local players, or a couple of players I got to watch. And one thing that would happen was, there's shots that you kind of feel are important, and then there's shots where you don't feel like they're that important. So, for example, when they had the 6 ball, and if they can make the 6, the 7, 8, 9 are all wide open. Versus if they're on the 1 ball, where even if they make the 1 ball, there's a lot of work. It's hard to get shaped. There's still some congestion. Maybe the 4-7 combo has to be shot. There's a lot of work to do. They don't feel like this is necessarily game ball the same way. And I also I did a video review for one of my students. He emailed me a video. Now this guy is a great player. He beat the 9 ball ghost. He only beat it with a score of 7-4. But it was on a 9-foot table. But the way he did it, it was really, really, really clean. The score line wasn't the best ever, but his play was really good. He was playing great. But one of the mistakes he made was he missed ball in hand on the 1 ball. And the reason he missed ball in hand, if you had to ask me, was it was a tough layout. The 2 to the 3 was going to be monstrously hard. And even if he got through it, the 5, 6 would have had to have been comboed later. And sometimes I feel like you can be intimidated or bullied by the difficulty of the rack in the future, and just kind of like, if I get there, I get there, but I'm not going to work hard to get there because I'm not that excited about it. So I'll just kind of shoot, and if I happen to get there, we'll see if it goes my way. So what's my point? I would say that when you solve the rack, or when you have a lot of difficulty that's kind of intimidating, if you're kind of daunted by the difficulty of what lies ahead, those tend to be 2 situations in which you might lose your focus. And the way that I guess I look at this is, if you know that, it can be helpful. So what I find funny is it's almost like if there's a graph where focus is on the side and time is along the bottom. And if you could look at all the games you play and you could graph out your focus, you might notice that if you notice that your focus dips right when you solve racks, and if your focus dips right when you get a little daunted by what lies ahead, then you can study that and just be aware of that, and that can give you good information. And some people might look at that and say, well, what is the value of this? What did I really say? I just said, keep your focus. Keep your focus. And so somebody can say, well, I already know that. Keep focused. Yeah, of course, keep focused. But it's like, yeah, but I'm not saying just keep focused. I'm giving you a graph as to when players lose their focus. And then by knowing that, you can try to be aware that in each situation there's a priority of knowing what dangers lurk. And if you can be aware that when you solve a rack or when you're feeling a little intimidated by something around the corner, that's a tendency to where you're going to lose focus or do something that's maybe not very smart, like try to force this shot or do too much on this shot because whatever. And so then what can you do? By being aware of that, of course, you can put your awareness on making sure that you keep your focus. The other thing is a good mindset. One thing I really believe in is that I think that a lot of players consider racks pass or fail, meaning if I run out, that's good. If I don't run out, I dogged it. But I look at it more like it's the quality of the performance. So when I get to that 6-ball or 7-ball where I've solved the rack, I'm not thinking, great, I'll just tap a man. If it's sloppy, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, I'm looking at it like I'm an Olympic gymnast trying to put on a performance where I'm still trying to make this run clean. If it looks easy, let's keep it easy. Let's avoid getting flat or on the rail. Let's finish the performance strong, bow to the judge, keep the entire thing crisp and clean. And so I'm looking more at quality because if I'm playing high quality pool, even if I dog something here, in the long run, if I'm playing good quality shots, it's going to scale up to a good trajectory for my career. Whereas if I just let up every time I solve the rack and start wobbling balls in and getting flat and hitting recovery shots and just making it tough and ugly, but still got through, like I can't really consider that a win. I may have run out that one rack, but if I have that attitude, that's not going to scale to where I want to go.
Well, I agree.
So I think that in general, I would just say I try to maintain a quality mindset rather than one of pass fail. And I'm aware that there's a couple times when I'm very liable to lose my focus. And right after I solve the rack is one of them. And if I'm intimidated by what's coming up, I have to really make a plan of what I want to do and commit to getting there. I have to commit to getting there and giving myself the shot of facing that adversity. Otherwise, it's easy to get bullied off it. So those are two times when I've seen a lot of players, including myself, lose focus. And by being aware of that, instead of just trying to focus all the time, I know that in those situations, I'm going to be tested with my focus, and I have to really take a deep breath, regroup, and commit to playing high-quality pool to either keep the remainder of the rack easy or get to the hard part of the rack that I'm intimidated by and at least give myself a chance. So those are just two times. Now there's times playing one pocket or playing defense. There's many other times on that graph where focus dips. But I would say be attentive to when if there's a pattern as to when you lose focus, put that on your radar, because as much as we'd like to say always keep your focus, we're humans. And so we have to be aware of trends, and that awareness could go a long way.
What do you think about, we mentioned today about playing players that hate to lose. And you know by experience that you've played players like that. And they're hard to beat because of that. When you go into a match with that kind of attitude of hating to not focus is like hating to lose. Do you believe that tends to raise your level of focus ability throughout the match or the day or whatever?
Well, yeah, it's like if my dad was a rock climber, and if he was in a survival situation, you don't lose focus, right?
Right.
But to be fair, and I've said this before, kind of like what I was just saying about solving the rack, more climbers die on the descent. They get to the top of their climb, and then they're hiking down the hill on the backside and all of a sudden they stumble and fall. More people die hiking off the trail than they do climbing the mountain because of the focus and all that stuff. But I think that, yeah, you're right. Competitive fire helps keep focus. But there has to be a balance where you have to have a burning desire to want to win and maybe a hatred of losing, but not a fear of losing. It's
right.
The difference between not liking it versus being horrified that you can't handle it. And that's a different conversation, but it's interesting.
Yeah, fear is not a good thing to have in competition of any type.
Yep. My life is one big fear of losing.
Well, that's funny. So and I thought about it too.
I'm still married because I'm so afraid of what would have happened if I wouldn't have been.
That's fair. So I guess, is there anything else that we want to chat about?
Well, I think little Chris asked the question twice, and he was asking about I don't know how to scroll back through comments. He was asking about since
games.
different players. He was talking about all arounds. I think he was just kind of saying, like, since Shane wins in this format and maybe Dennis wins in that format, would there be value in having these guys compete in some type of all around where they play 8-ball, 9-ball, 10-ball, whatever, some mix. So he asked the question, what do you think? What do you guys think?
Derby is a good example of that.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a cool thought experiment, but it'll never happen because pool players are nitty, right? So you're never going to get Shane to play a one pocket. He doesn't really like it, although Shane's a great one pocket player. But you'll never get let's say Tony Choan in a tournament like that because he's a specialty player, right? He can play great rotation, but he's not looking to play rotation. You're never going to get somebody like Fedor Gorst in a one pocket or a Banks tournament, right? So I mean, I guess it's a great thought experiment, but it's just not realistic to ever make happen, which is a bummer. I mean, it would be kind of cool.
Well, Demi, I'll ask you again. You're a professional pool player, not just instructor. Is there a game? Is there a pocket pool game that you don't like or wouldn't play?
I'm not crazy about Banks. I think it's a good game. It's just one that I never played. And if you look at my approach to pool and what I find interesting about pool, I'm more of I like the strategic games, and I like games where, every other game is a mix of pattern play and safeties and moving as well as offense, and it's all blended together. It's some really interesting decisions. Bank pool, it's so heavily offensive. It's kind of like three cushion in the sense that I'm not saying there's no defense in three cushion, but it's really, it's all about scoring billiards. And when you start playing billiards, you might play billiards for 3 or 4 years before you really start learning any nuance of speed or defense, because it's really an offensive game. And same thing with banks. Like there's a little bit, obviously there's times when you're just moving, okay, in bank pool, but for the most part, it's all about who can bank balls in. And there's not much like, nobody's like, I'm the best. He would be the best banker in the world if it weren't for his pattern play. It's like, no, that's not really. Pattern play is not really a big part of bank pool. You always shoot the bank. You're going to make it the highest percentage. It's shot making. It's heavily weighted. Position play a little bit, and then pattern play almost negligible. It's not my mix of game that I really find interesting because I like the strategic and interesting puzzle like games. But other than bank pool, I like every game. Yeah.
A good example of that, talking about banks, was the year Larry Neville kind of finals of the match he was playing, and it happened when he started playing defense.
You're talking about
rather
Boosty?
Than offense.
When he played Boosty?
Yeah.
He was up,
he had that match. He was
up 2-3,
killing him 3-0, and he lost the match.
He was up 2-0 and had 4 banks to his 5 for the win.
Right,
and
you could tell what
I think he played like one defensive shot, and then Boosty went on a tear. I was watching that actually live.
He did, but Larry scratched 3 times in bank pool on an open bank shot.
Yeah, but that was after Boosty started putting the pressure on him. I mean, Boosty made a great shot to get started. And then I don't think he ran out the game, but I think he ran out 3 and then put the pressure on. I think Larry scratched at that point in time. And then the second game is when he started, kind of falling apart. And Boosty just, sensed weakness and just, put his foot down. So, but my headphone's actually about to die. And
Nate, before you go, would you put in the chat? Would you link my website? I would just like anybody that's interested to go to my website and just check out the training I do, the boot camps I do. Even if you're not thinking about coming out just now, thank you. Just check out my website, see what I offer, because I'd love to hear from a few of you guys. I've got some openings still before the end of the year, and I'd like to get them filled up so I have a full calendar between the holidays and whatnot. So if anybody has time off coming up for the end of the year, any time off around the holidays, might be a good time to look me up. Spend 3 days on a table and have a lot of fun and start hitting the balls good. And Rob, that includes you. We can talk about it too.
Okay.
All right. Well, with that, we can close out for the day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for sharing and supporting and all that good stuff. So thank you guys again. See you later.
Okay, take care.
See you, boys.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. If you've liked what you've heard and you want to contribute to the future content that will be made, consider joining the podcast's Patreon at www.patreon.com/QItUp. Becoming a Patreon of the podcast will help to create all of the future content that the podcast will have. Special shout out to Dave Peters, Aaron Taylor, Pete Silsby, Morgan Lupton, Ben Young, Robert Miller, Andy Morse, and Bill Pelham for your generous contributions to the podcast's Patreon. If you ever need any more information on what the Patreon system is, or how you can contribute outside of the Patreon, please reach out to the podcast or Neight himself. If you would like to contribute to the podcast for free, consider sharing any podcasts or the podcast page on Facebook itself. Also, leaving a review and a rating if you listen through iTunes. It helps others find the podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode of the Q It Up podcast.